It is just a complete waste of time, in my opinion, to send cold emails today. If you have a portfolio and you've done work, they will reach out to you.
I think when you're starting out, it's very tempting to just spam the world. Me.
And follow up 20 times and get blocked.
They should see your profile and they should be like, wow, I can't believe this person exists.
A lot of people today are freelancing India to India, which I think is a terrible idea. It's not close to what you'd make freelancing outside.
If you're doing India to India, it's not exactly freelancing. You're running a business.
Too many people want to make too much money really quick. And one learning I've had is it takes time.
I think if I push this much harder, I'm going to get this much more. So the question becomes, what's my cap? Can I just keep going?
I had an easier time after some time charging more for my services than less. I think if you're good, you can charge whatever you want. But to be honest, you'll never feel 100% confident. I think the next TCS, Wipro, blah, blah, blah is going to be made in video. Ladies and gentlemen, hi. Today I have Abhinav with me. And for those of you that don't know Abhinav, his full name is Abhinav Chhikara. Me and Abhinav wrote a book in 2017, which got published in 2018. It was called Pyjama Profit. It was about freelancing. It was about remote work, much before remote work is even a thing. And the cool part about the book is that we made lots of predictions in the book. And now, 7, maybe 8 years later, I actually want to go through those predictions. And I want to see how many of them we were right about, how many of them we were wrong about. But before that, I want Abhinav to introduce himself. Abhinav, welcome. How are you feeling?
What's up, Varun? What's up, folks? My name is Abhinav. I'm the founder of 10K Designers. Last 4 years, I've been living in Copenhagen. I just moved back to Bangalore. And yeah, it's been a while since we wrote this, bro.
Yeah. Abhinav, we wrote this 2017, we started writing this. Oh, you have a copy.
Here's a really old yellowed pages copy. But yeah, this is it.
Dude, so books last like 7 years, right? After 7, this was 2017. So we wrote into 2018. So about 6 years later, 7 years later, the book has become yellow. Like the pages look like, one of those old library books. You can see some yellow stain on it. This is not you putting talcum powder or not talcum powder, like turmeric on it, right? This is actually age.
I had to dig it up. This is a first day copy. We got this on the day of the launch.
So I met a guy recently, and the reason I want to do this video, the reason I texted you, I called you actually. The reason I want to do this video was somebody I met recently. He was 30 years old. He's like, bro, I read Pyjama Profit when I was young. I was like, wait, what do you mean young? He's like, no, bro, when I read it, I was like 25 or 26 or something like that. I was like, oh my God, it's been around for a while. The average, if somebody read this when it came out and they were 20 years old, they're now 26. So they've actually had 6 years of career time to figure out whether this is real or not. And I feel like this is the book that really got us loyalty and followers. And I think a lot of it has turned out to be true. It was before its time. A lot of people look at certain chapters and be like, dude, this was way before its time. So what I want to do today is I actually want to go through this and I want to go through chapter by chapter and sort of figure out what are the predictions we made, did it play out, whether we were wrong on some things. I think we should also be honest if we were wrong about certain things and be like, why were we wrong, right? It helps us sharpen our thoughts for the next 5 years, right? And also in the end, I want to make some more predictions for the next 5 years, right? So that's what I want to do. Why did we write this book?
We actually started an agency more than 10 years ago, right? And in fact, I've dug up this old business card. I was
so cute.
chief financial officer. Basically, I was the only one who could handle the money. But we started the services thing because we were like, yo, we're in college. We've got the skills. We can do Photoshop a little bit, figure it out. How do we take these skills, which is an abstract thing, and possibly make money from this? And we did that. College, it was great. But I think by the time we wrote this book, it had been a couple years since that had happened. We'd already graduated. People would ask us, how to get started in freelancing. And we were already starting to forget, right? We were already on the startup path, going hard into it. And so we were like, couple more years, we're not even going to remember what this was like. We need to right now put down all these thoughts, write a book, such that if anybody just asks hey, I want to get started freelancing, what was your journey with freelancing? There's a list of 20 to 50 questions. We can just say, here's the link, check out the book.
Interesting. We have 2 versions of that card. You showed me another version, right? So I think in the beginning we started with, just so you know, we actually started this as a t-shirt and laptop skins company. Right? Then college, my first big pivot, right? Actually, I wouldn't even call it big. I don't know what we were doing in college. But this is the first card. And then we had a second version of the card when we became corporate professionals after we started making money. So the first one is before making money. You can see there's an eagle or a hawk or something in there, like a black.
Lot of textures, lot of grunge textures specifically.
Good for that era.
Really good for that era. And this made in Photoshop 100 layers just for this PSD. And then this is our corporatized logo. And we said, t-shirts, not going to cut it, not cool. Let's get into more digital stuff. Let's do websites. And that's when we did this.
Your title also changed. It went from financial officer to media strategist.
Media strategy. I don't even know what that was, but the thing is, I was about to get into design, and I remember you taught me Photoshop, right? I was like, bro, I want to move from this and let's do Photoshop. And then I was like, okay, what do we do? And so the reason I call myself media strategist is I was like, we need to use design, we need to use the cool stuff we're doing to get attention, to make ourselves look cool, to make ourselves look trustworthy. And that's when I realized, oh, okay, design, you can use the stuff in Photoshop, but then it has this effect on perception.
Yeah. Interesting. So let's go through the book. Let's dive in. Let's see what we've written. Let's see whether we're right or wrong. So Pyjama Profit, the Millennial's Guide to a Sustainable Freelance Career. Question number 1. Are freelance careers sustainable?
They are sustainable, but I think the definition, if you call yourself a freelancer, number one, you're going to get shit from your parents and stuff. They're like, bro, don't do this for free. Yeah. You're like, no, I don't do it for free. Time waste, okay? But besides that, I think freelancer is too limiting today. Yeah. As we go through the book, you'll realize that the better word for this is probably something of an independent creator, or just, see, if you're a designer and you work on brand experience, UI, UX design, call yourself that. Don't call yourself a freelance this and freelance that.
Yeah. You cheapen the role in a way.
Yeah.
Interesting. I love the first, what do you call it, prologue or whatever. We had one line. Okay, I love this line. It is so true, but also untrue. It says, I'm going to read it out, to the internet, without which we'd be working 9 to 5. Okay, without the internet, we wouldn't be doing this. But there is a lie in this, which is we said that we'd be working 9 to 5. I wake up at 12 in the afternoon and I work all the way till I go to sleep. So I work 16-hour days. Thank you, internet. You also work?
Because without the internet, we wouldn't be able to work 24 hours. There's nothing else in the world that's that stimulating to hold your attention for that long.
Too much dopamine. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, but without the internet, this wouldn't exist. This book wouldn't exist. We'd be living the beaten path. I'd be some corporate employee somewhere. You'd be some corporate employee somewhere. We wouldn't even know other paths existed. So without early internet in our brains and I think one common thing between you and me is we both got computers early. Not mobile phones, computers early. Yeah. Mobile phones, I think I got it slightly late. And I think having a computer and internet connection early really showed us paths outside of the beaten path. And I feel today a lot of what's being shown on the internet is actually beaten path only, but with new packaging. Yeah. But yeah, forever grateful to the internet for making this happen. Okay, let's start. So there's a bunch of chapters. It's a very short book. It's like 100 pages or something. We're not going to go through everything. Awesome. So chapter 1 was, I think, one of the things we said was, one of the biggest factors that we've seen contribute to employability, and I was running a recruitment startup at this time, is technical skill and presentation. We agree on that. I think over the years, we have realized that it's not just about skill, the technical skill, it's also about how you present yourself online. The second thing which we said was in this chapter was what this book is not. So there are 2 points to this. One is the book is not an abstract rant about the freelance industry. We offer our insights and our personal learnings. Second thing, which almost everyone forgot in the freelance industry, especially in India, is that this book is not a replacement for hard work. We merely show you our paths, and we made a lot of mistakes along the way. This book will help you sidestep some of them, but it still requires hard work and dedicated approach. Yet, I feel like that part of the message might have been missed by the audience. Do you feel that?
I feel like people think freelance is a temporary thing. And so the benefits that come with just going at it for a long amount of time, that's the hard work. And people might not stick around long enough to get that reward. But then the bigger rewards come later, right? The smaller rewards are just the ones that keep you going day by day.
Yeah. Also, there's one line that I want to mention here. It's a special thanks to Gana Srinivas for helping us edit and refine the concepts in the book. So it's 2017 we wrote this. Yeah. You're now married to her?
Yeah, we were dating back then, now married, yep.
Nice. So you predicted that as well in a way, right? You knew that this name wouldn't change. Yeah. Awesome. So we started with our story. I'm actually going to skip our story because we spoke about it very quickly. We started as a t-shirt company in college. We were bored in college. We wanted to do something. Realized t-shirts are actually a lot of hard work for very little margin. So we actually pivoted from t-shirts to freelancing. That worked for about 3 years. And we started off freelancing at about $6, $7 an hour, like ridiculous rates. Yeah. And then eventually went to like $100, $150 an hour. Our lives changed over those 3 years. We realized money is not everything. I'm sure you also came to that same conclusion. And that's why then we want to take on harder risks. You built something called Listen, which is a startup. I built JobSpire, again, startup. We raised money. You went on from Listen to work at Unacademy as the head of design. So I'm sure your ESOPs there are now worth bazillion dollars. But yeah, I think, from where we started to where we're at, the path has been good.
Yeah.
Right? Awesome. There's one more line we said, it's in bold, which is, tomorrow if you put me in a strange country without any resources, all I need is a laptop and an internet connection, and I know I'll build myself an awesome life fairly quick. Do you believe this?
This actually happened to me. So last 4 years, I was in a strange country. After Ghana and I got married, we moved to Copenhagen like in 2020, right in the middle of COVID. And strange country, beautiful country, awesome, right? Living there, cold weather, amazing architecture, very inspiring. But I had zero connections, right? And actually the only thing that kept me sane was that because of online work, because I had built my distribution, personal brand, I was able to run 10K and even grow 10K in these 4 years while there, right? And yeah, I mean, I had some friends there, but to be able to work hardcore, actually grow the company remotely, I did not, we were working remotely back then, right? And this was when I think remote only became a common thing during COVID. Yeah. Before that, we were working remotely, we were working with clients, but last 4 years, actually built the startup totally remotely in a strange country. So totally true.
Yeah, actually, the next chapter, and this is the chapter called Freelance Economy. It says freelancing is the future. I think we were right about that, right? I think the world really went from everyone needs to have like a 10-year, 15-year career at a particular job, then move on to the next job for 15 years to a lot of this, especially youngsters today are freelancing a lot, where they're sort of working with a company for like 3, 6, 8 months, move on to the next company. I don't no value judgment on it, but it says that, in America, freelancers were 35% of the American economy, but that also included gig workers, right? Like the guy, delivery guy, whatever. I feel like freelance economy has really grown in the last few years. COVID really accelerated it, but we couldn't predict COVID back then. Like nobody knew that COVID was going to happen. So what were you thinking when you wrote that the future is going to be work from home, remote work, pajama? That's why it's called Pyjama Profit, right? You're sitting in your pajamas, which is a symbol for home, and then you're making profit. How did you know that before COVID?
When I was in school, it was all about the people we interact with are the people who we immediately know, right? Yeah. For example, you and I, we met at an IIT coaching first. Yeah. Eventually, we were also in Manipal. But you were limited. The things you can do are limited by the people who are around you. Yeah. But then the thoughts that you think are limited to what they think. Yeah. The reason I knew this is because, yes, we got computers very early. We had access to the internet. And we were plugged into these subcultures that to the rest of the people around us didn't even exist, right? For you, it was Dota. Yeah. For me, a lot of it was just like Pokemon, being a top contributor on Yahoo Answers. I don't know why I was doing it. It was just fun.
Status.
Yeah. And you would get points and all of this stuff. And so I had this feeling already that, of course, I want to be in a place where there are awesome people. One of the reasons I also chose to go to Manipal is I was like, yeah, let's have an experience that is an immersive, away from home. But yeah, I had this feeling that, there is more out there than the stuff that is immediately around you. And so if it is possible to do stuff on the internet, it's possible to meet people on the internet, a lot more can be done. It's just I had no idea what it would be. I didn't have an idea of the specifics.
When I started believing freelance is the future, when I got my first project, I feel like we have always experimented, and once we run an experiment and it works for us, like there's that feeling, right? We called it in this book, we called it the first project effect. Till the first project, nobody believes you. Nobody believes that freelancing is possible. They don't believe it themselves. Even I didn't believe it. The first time I was on Odesk, today it's called Upwork, and I got my first project, it was a Malaysian eye clinic. We've spoken about it in this. And they wired me money online, and it came through because that time I also had this confusion, how are they going to send me money? Yeah. PayPal, I'd never heard of PayPal. And that time we were paid through PayPal, right? It was like a life-changing moment. Yeah. You see money hit your bank account and then you can use that the next day to buy groceries. It's different. Like I was beaming, I was smiling the next day. I went to the, in Manipal we have these stores, right, outside. And I remember going to one of those stores and I was smiling and I was buying stuff. And I was like, they were like, why? I was like, this is my money. I made money for the first time. So I think that's when I knew the freelance economy is a thing, because or freelancing is the future. Or actually at that time I thought it was the present. And I made this one mistake, which today I don't make, which is just because I am doing something, it doesn't mean it's the present. Because from us, because we're the early adopters, right? Because we've started using the internet very, very early. Any new technology will be very early to it, right? Like what we've done with AI. But it takes the world 10 years to adopt it. So today, 7-8 years later, it's become mainstream. That can also be a problem, as we learn in the book.
And I think when we were in it, we thought we were late.
Yeah.
We were like, shit, I wish, like, fuck, we're too young. Because we would see all these freelancers who had logged hundreds and thousands of hours. We're like, how do we even compete? We thought we were really late to it, to be honest.
Yeah, we were super duper young because there's so many people in the world, so many people who want projects done. It's just the number is massive. It's like hard to compute. And it's only gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. Awesome. So we predicted, actually we didn't predict, Indeed has a graph here of the projected freelance jobs. This was broken by COVID, so I'm sure it went straight up beyond that. But there is one thing, right, which I think people got the wrong message from. It's that this book is about taking advantage, exploiting the conversion rate between US dollar or any other foreign currency in India. This is actually a financial book. I'm a financial idiot, but this is a book about finance. There's a book about how global price arbitrage works. But we didn't know it back then. We thought, oh, we're making money from US, Canada, etc., etc. That's why we're getting paid so much. We knew that obviously Indians wouldn't pay us that much. But a lot of people today are freelancing India to India, which I think is a terrible idea. Like it's not close to what you'd make freelancing outside. Do you have any thoughts on the financial angle of what we wrote?
I think it was interesting because suddenly money, which is a hard thing, it's like literally we were counting notes from the t-shirts.
No UPI back then.
Yeah, no UPI either. To money becoming software, like money becoming like something that comes in your email just like a attachment.
Yeah.
That was like, oh, okay, money is now, it's in the computer. Yeah. And computer is a kind of our domain, like we're into this. I don't know if India to India is a bad thing. It's just that if you're doing India to India, it's not exactly freelancing. You're running a business.
Or you should be, if you have one client, you should do a job.
Yeah, pretty much, right? And I think the interesting thing about this is if money is virtual now, and it's gotten even more virtual, right? With like whatever, UPI, crypto, all of this stuff. See the big picture, right? The whole point is you don't have to limit yourself geographically in terms of people, opportunities, but that's also money.
Yeah. I think and there's a line here where we said the best talent isn't local. For the US guy there, it's like to hire someone like a software engineer per year, it's like $200,000. Yeah. But if you go to India, it's like $20,000. So huge, like it's an obvious win for them. The problem is trust, of course. They don't trust somebody who's charging $20,000 because even they are like, how can it be so low? Just like you are saying, oh, how can that pay be so high? Those guys are thinking, oh, how can the pay be so low? Yeah. Especially during that period, people just couldn't understand. I had an easier time after some time charging more for my services than less. It's weird because I was just like, if I charge too less, the perception will be like scammer. Yeah. You should just be slightly under what they were charging. And that's when we were making awesome money, right? Like when somebody else was charging X, but we were like X minus 20%, they're like, okay, that's believable. Yeah. So I think that is where we really got the opportunity from. Just be slightly cheaper than what talent is already there.
Like I feel like the clients, they should see your profile and they should be like, wow, I can't believe this person exists. Yeah. Like the price is one thing, but it's like, yo, there's clearly something here. Like there's a mismatch.
Yeah, but I think we've ruined that. I'll come to a little bit of where I feel like the world has changed to become even more low trust now, right? Because of certain people charging too little and then just being really bad at what they do and not communicating well. Like we now have a bad reputation on the internet, Indians. Like I wrote an article about this. I don't know if you remember, on Medium I'd written one article 2016, 2017 about how there are too many Indians there charging too little and then scamming the customers, right? And because of that, now they see that you're from India and you get like a bad signal. We'll come to that later. But I think we also spoke about something called the pajama economy, where we said that this is not true for all jobs. It might be true for design, software, etc. There's this Venn diagram. What does this Venn diagram mean?
Pyjama and profit, right? First one is you got to be in the area of, see, we're doing this to make money, right? There needs to be a profit to it. Pyjama, it's about comfort, right? In the sense that you don't have to work from pajamas, but it's like you get to decide what level you want to be operating at, right? And so it's the Venn diagram of it's sustainable, it kind of grows. Number two, it's in your control. You can kind of tune this up and down. And in that intersection, you can go deeper and figure out.
Do you also feel like, one of the things I remember when we were talking about this is, I also remember I said that it also has to be where the profit pool is. Like you can't freelance in certain things that there's no market for. Like you can't freelance as a grocery store worker, right? Because you need to be there physically. So this is a few jobs back then which were really overpriced in America, knowledge work. Not overpriced, maybe normal for them, which we could really take advantage of. That's where the profit pool, the arbitrage was. And that's what, we sort of took advantage of. And again, we spoke about, why they actually want to hire us because it's, it's cheaper, it's obvious. There's one really cool thing you wrote about the economy here, which I loved, right? So I think before this, I wrote some about of all this price parity and stuff. But I think you wrote something very awesome, which is you are free to take as much money you want from this river, no limits. Like the economy is like a river. You're free to take as much money as you want from this river, no limits. The only rule is that you have to put in value that is equal to or more than the money you make. It's very different from how regular people think about work today. I'm going to a job, f*** you, pay me, I'll do the minimum.
Yeah.
Okay. But you're saying that it's like Indiana Jones. You've seen Indiana Jones? Most people haven't seen it, right? Like, if he's taking a treasure, he has to put something of equal weight there, otherwise the entire thing will collapse.
Yeah.
So you have to, it's a trade. Can you explain this better for us?
I think the kind of thing I was realizing back then was growing up, we're more consumers of stuff, right? And so we're purely consuming. The money though seemed to be in creating stuff, right? And so the whole point of value creation is, yeah, you're consuming stuff, you're learning the skills, but you need to create something out of it, right? So value creation is a huge part. But then how does this tie to money? So the economy as a flowing river, like you're sitting in a cafe, the lights are on, people are making transactions all around you. The economy is going, right? But if you want to be a part of this, you can't just steal, right? You got to create something that has value. People want it. For that, firstly, people have to realize they want it. And then if they do, they pay you money for it. And if you can just kind of figure out what's your part in this, you can actually take as much money in the flowing river of money. You can take as much from it, but then the way you do it is through value creation. And I mean, some people messaged me saying they loved this concept. Some people are like, bro, what are you talking about? But yeah, I think once you run a business, once you start getting into this, it becomes a little obvious like, yo, I think if I push this much harder, I'm going to get this much more. And so the question becomes, what's my cap? Like, can I just keep going?
Yeah. And I think it's not about hard work as much. Like, it's not like that crow and the water story where you just keep putting like this thing and the water keeps rising and that the stones are hard work. The stones are value. And sometimes value is not so connected to hard work. It could be something that people really, really, really want, but don't have, but it's very easy for you to make. It might take you 1 second to do it. Maybe you have an amazing talent to mimic somebody else's voice. And let's say we were in an economy where that was very, very valuable. It'll take you 5 seconds. For that 5 seconds, you make a lot of money. Like a celebrity doing a brand deal for a minute. In that 1 minute, they'll make more money than most people make in their lifetime. Yeah. But that's because there's a demand for it, right? So it's more demand that you satisfy with that value and you're able to take out of the river, right? And when you run a business, you're also delivering now value to your employees. Yeah. Actually, they are delivering value to you. You are sending money to them. So I see it as like a bunch of lines between all of us. Yeah. Some lines are thicker because they're adding more value and therefore they're extracting more. And some lines are thinner because the value and the cash exchange is lower. Yeah. Yeah. Whereas the traditional employee mindset is I'll do school, I'll do college, I'll get this degree and then I'm going to get a job no matter even if I go to the office and do nothing. Which I think is a completely broken concept. Yeah. And this should be the real concept taught, right? Like, but social media has completely got it like the inverse.
And it kind of sounds like some kind of business concept, but in reality, it's the most human thing ever. Like gratitude is Lindy, right?
Can you explain what Lindy is?
It's something that has existed over time and continues to be today. And so the longer something has stayed true, the more it's probably a part of, I'm probably not defining it correctly, but gratitude has been around forever, right? In a tribe, if people are grateful to you because you provide something, your value goes up. And the precursor to that is you got to figure out what value can I create that people want.
And money is just a codified version of it. Actually, money started as an IOU. Like, oh, you did this for me, thank you, I owe you, here's a slip. You can use this next time. Next time you want, I grow buffaloes. You saved my life here, I was almost about to die. You come to my house, you give me the slip, I'll give you the buffalo. Even if I'm not there, my friend will give you the buffalo, he knows this slip. That's literally what it is. And when you go to work, to a job, you're supposed to deliver some value that is rare. Rarer the better, right? Like if you have gold, that time it was considered.
And the more grateful they are, the more you can get.
The more it's valuable to them also. Like somebody's life is very valuable. That's why medicine in the US is super expensive, right? Somebody's life is very valuable. So the more valuable something is to somebody, the more they're willing to spend on it, right? So I wish more people understood this even today versus I get a job and then all I have to do is like just, 8 hours there or 7 hours. I think that's like completely missing the point, right? I think it's more about value delivered. Yeah. Next, we spoke about, and I love this, right? We spoke about pajama categories. Those Venn diagrams, we said, okay, there's certain pools where there's profit. Let's talk about the pools where there's profit. And we call these pools the pajama categories. These are the pools that we had seen on Upwork and Odesk at that time. But dude, there's a graph in this, okay, which I absolutely love. It's truly played out. I want to show people the graph. Yeah. Okay, there's a nice.
Can you read out what are the categories?
So there's two axes. One is demand for skills and the other one is time. It starts with early adopters, so there's very low demand for skills. Then there's acceptance, that people are like, okay, this is something that's needed. Yeah. Then there's peak popularity, where 2022 software engineering, where everybody wants it. And then suddenly there's commoditization, which is now everybody can do it, right? Therefore, the value of the thing is going down. Commoditization basically means it's too easy to get this product, so people are less grateful, so they're spending less money on you. And then there's this last thing called automation, which in 2017, for us to have this graph, was pretty cool. So early adoption, acceptance, peak popularity, commoditization, automation. We have seen this with software, right? And I keep talking about it and I'm like, yo, peak popularity was 2022, it's 2024. We're on the other side of it. It's starting to get commoditized. Pretty soon it's going to get automated, right? And we are seeing this exactly play out. How did we have the wisdom to do this in 2017?
I think it's connecting the pieces. But question for you, how does someone know where they are on the graph? Or is the industry on the graph? Or is an individual on the graph?
You can see by the number of courses being made on the topic, right? If there are too many courses on it, if there's one, it's fine. There's two, that's fine. If there are like 100 people making courses on it, you are peak popularity. And then once it gets to 1,000 people making courses on it, you are commoditized, right? Because then if 1,000 people are making courses on it, the demand for people learning it is very, very high. Therefore, when you're applying to a job as a software engineer, now you're competing with so many others who have also learned this skill. Yeah. Therefore, you're less valuable to the employer. Therefore, your price is going down. People like Infosys, TCS, the salaries have stayed static, considering the inflation has continued to go up. That actually means that the value of a software, the average software engineer has declined, which I believe in. It's just commoditization. If there were less software engineers, they were like, software is still very valuable to the world. Don't get me wrong, right? People think I think software is over or whatever, right? Like, it's still very valuable to the world. People are still going to use software, whether internally or selling it outside, that's a different debate. But I feel like if you have so many software engineers available for hire, then the prices are going to go down. Yeah. It becomes a less rare product. People are less grateful. There's less of an IOU. And then there's going to be automation. Bold of us to say this pre-AI era, but let's see if we've spoken any more about AI in a 2017 written book. Awesome. So then we started speaking about pajama categories. And dude, we had like a bunch of categories here that we had some experience with. I want to talk about them one by one. Yeah. The first one is admin support. And we said you can make between $3 to $10 an hour. And the new technology cycles every 1 to 3 years. Yeah. You have some experience with admin support.
Yeah, I think back then we thought admin support is like just low level, hey, you have to make an Excel sheet with 500 and just manually do da-da-da. Today, for example, there is somebody who runs operations on my team. They get paid really well.
Where are they from?
They're from Philippines, right? Okay. Mother of two, Eunice, does awesome work.
What's her name?
Eunice. Okay. And the thing is, she's top performing employee, right? She's also right now probably the only person in the team who's remote. And it's not low level tasks at all. Like it's firstly engaging with customers, engaging with internal community, talking to students, talking to mentors, but it's a high trust role. Like she has access to most of my stuff. It's a high communication role. Like you can't just be like, oh, da, 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 da. Like you have to be very clear. You have to constantly be in the loop with me. And so admin support, I did not expect it would be crazy. I thought it would be low level tasks. And I think the low level tasks, I think she uses GPT for a lot of stuff, but then it's also, she's taken over a lot more responsibility because the small stuff, she's just able to do it. Yeah.
Awesome. So, dude, there's one more thing you said in this. Some types of skills that fall under this pajama category include transcription, data entry, personal and virtual assistantship, customer service, and research. This is what your assistant does. And you use a tool for this, right? You used a platform to get these assistants called somewhere.com. That time it was called Shepherd or something, right? So insane how admin support has become such a big thing. That time it wasn't, virtual assistants weren't that big. I mean, Somewhere didn't exist back then, or at least I hadn't heard of them, which was awesome. The next Pyjama category is marketing. Pretty obvious. I think it's done fairly well. Everything from ad writing to, video creation, I think he's done superbly well.
Would you put content under marketing?
We have a separate category called content writing. It's the third category, it's called content writing. And we said time to learn the basics is 4 weeks, client demand is high. But we spoke about it in terms of writing. This is pre-geo. And I'll tell you what we've written, okay? This Pyjama category includes article and blog writing, academic writing and research, copywriting, creative writing, editing and proofreading, web content, and so on. Okay? As a freelance content writer, you have to understand the business and decide what content works best, how to convey the message in the best way possible, and how to drive a point that will affect the business goal. Okay? And of course, we spoke about content management systems like WordPress back then. I think content is still very valuable.
I think both of these have combined now, like marketing and content. Like a pure content writer, probably not it. You need somebody who thinks from that audience perspective.
I mean, one thing I think we got wrong, and maybe this was pre-geo, but I think we should have really accounted for video a lot more. Like, people are not reading as much as they are watching. People are watching like 4-5 hours of video content a day.
Yeah. And to place this in time, right? We didn't have channels back then. Shorts didn't exist. Most podcasts were audio only. Blogs was the biggest category of content, right? Because SEO was the primary way that...
We made our channels after the book. The publisher had asked us that we need to promote this to make channels. I wouldn't have started my YouTube channel without this book. The publisher said, go make a book, so go make a channel. So I thought, screw it, I'll do it. I'm sure it's the same for you. I think if we had written this book after we made the channel, we would have been like, we experimented with this, there's some traction here, maybe it's going to become big. But insane, content writing. Then there was design, which I think you've captured as a category in India. This includes user experience design, web design, illustration, logo design, branding. Why has it become all about UI UX today? Why is the narrative captured by that?
I think UI UX caught, like this was mid last decade. A lot of web designers were like, are we only going to do websites? Like what's next? And the fact that mobile was picking up, apps were picking up, the biggest apps we use today, started last decade. I think UI UX design became one of the highest valued design roles, mostly because the output you created would be used by millions of people, right?
Scalable.
Much rarer for design to be scalable. Although today, I kind of feel like it's gone to a point where as a designer, you cannot just do UI UX. You got to be thinking about the bigger picture. And so I do feel it's shifting towards a more design generalist role. But the way I will probably rephrase this is people care about experiences, right? Coldplay tickets, concerts in India going crazy, cafes, more cafes than ever. People want, not just the cafe branding logo to be great. They want the physical experience to be great. They want the merch experience. They want to put this on Instagram. They want the virtual experience to be great.
A lot of D2C companies.
Yeah. So I think the design, we're probably, I feel like we're early in design in the sense that design now is becoming a bit of an all-encompassing thing where it's all experience. And all experience, all touch points. UI UX, which is web, app, in-person experience, merch experience, physical product experience, content and media experience. And so brand experience as a category, I think that's a new one that
I would call it graphic design, but I've also realized that that's like calling a coder computer typist, right? So I think design needs a rebirth, design needs a branding rebirth in a way, right? Because I feel like there's lots of valuable tasks, but kids don't want to do it. Like I'm having a hard time convincing people that, look, UI UX is good, but how many app screens will you do? Once the company becomes successful, it doesn't need any more. Those companies are flooded with designers.
We don't really use new apps anymore.
Yeah, I haven't downloaded a new app in like forever, right? So that era is over. Now everything's moved on inside the apps. The arena is now inside YouTube, inside Instagram, posts, videos, etc. So people have just missed out on this. Whereas apps also technically were inside a layer which is the app stores, which is inside the phones. So it's just gone one layer deeper. It's not it's not any less valuable or more valuable. It's just
Like
as
today,
valuable.
a YouTube channel for a YouTube or an Instagram channel for an account, the content you post there, that, back in the day to get crazy amount of users, you needed to make the app. Now within the app, each account has millions of monthly actives, millions of daily actives, right?
Correct.
So the attention of detail that you would give to that, now
Same
it's
thing.
everything.
I have one very important 3-4 paragraphs that we've written, okay? For example, if you're working in UI UX design, we would highly recommend Sketch app of Figma.
Yeah.
This is 2017. Figma, if you were saying that it released in 2016.
Yeah, it came out of closed beta in 2016.
That's insane. So a year into Figma, you said this is going to be the next big thing. And then it's been, now it's like popular. Like maybe last year it was like at peak popularity, right? That's insane. That's like, I mean, but that's the thing, right? Like now it's coming into design school curriculums, Figma. At that time, nobody knew it. They were still teaching Photoshop and a little bit of other tools and whatnot, right? Corel Draw and all that. Now Figma has become mainstream. It's the same thing. Like people don't recognize that actually we will always be far before your school curriculums. Like we're using Stable Diffusion now.
Yeah.
It's been a year. Actually, we started using Stable Diffusion the day it came out. We started using ChatGPT. We've gotten faster. Your colleges have gotten slower. 5 years later, Stable Diffusion will be in your CV and you'll be like in your college course and you'll be like, oh, I remember these guys talking about it. By that time, we'll be like 35, 37, something like that. And
that's the early adopter curve, right?
yeah.
If most people will only hear about it when it hits peak popularity.
Yeah.
But you have to be in the niche, you have to be a nerd about something to even catch these little waves.
We said more stuff. For logos and animations, vector design tools like Adobe Illustrator and Affinity Designer work well. For video production and animation, Adobe After Effects and Adobe Premiere Pro are widely used.
And that's now your category with AV. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think really it's been 7-8 years, 6-7, whatever, lots of years. And it's incredible that many of the technology predictions have held up. Like you should have assumed in 6-7 years new things would have come out. Lots of people are building new video editing tools. Lots of people are building new design apps or apps to do design. Yet the status quo has held up. Photoshop is still king. Figma is still doing well considering it was back then. Why do you think the tooling hasn't changed so much?
I think the tooling has. It's just that when it comes to peak popularity, when it comes to the mainstream, teams will use whatever's most popular. Like it's hard for you to convince your 100-person org. Even back then, when I was at Unacademy, we were using Sketch. And then one day I was like, guys, we need to switch to Figma. And they were an early stage startup. They were like, yeah, whatever you say goes. But I knew counterparts who were like, yo, we pay a lot of money to Adobe for our licenses. And Adobe XD is bundled into this. And so we can't switch. And so it became a company top-down decision because it was the peak popularity thing.
There's one line I said here, which is there are huge overlaps in what you can create with these tools. UI and video, design and video, it's almost the same thing, right? One is motion design, one is design and motion. Why have students taken it to feel like completely separate categories? Like in my books, a UI UX designer should be able to do video and vice versa. Like it doesn't feel, but I know the comments will say otherwise. I know there are different things, but both have behavioral elements to them. You can't, when you do video editing, it's not like you're brain dead going and saying, oh, I'll just make this animation. You're thinking about the end guy, right? You're thinking about how to keep his retention up.
Totally.
With UI UX, you're thinking about the flow and the convenience of that flow. But people tend to pitch these as two completely separate fields. Why?
I think it's because in the past decade, skills took very long to learn. Like Photoshop, I took a year or two before I got comfortable, right? And so if skills take really long to learn, you learn less skills per unit time. And then so the mediums that you're in are very limited. Versus now with Figma, somebody can learn Figma within a couple of hours. Within a week, you feel quite comfortable. And so if your skill has gotten better, you are probably now want to explore more with it. And the thing you said, absolutely right, which is actually thinking in terms of my capabilities, skills, mediums, is the old way of doing it. The new way of doing it is what do people want? Users, right? In the end, a user is going to interact on their phone with your app, your video, anything you put out, and then also the environment in your cafe or your physical products. And so you got to think in terms of what do users want, what's their experience, and also what do brands want to make that bridge, to close that gap between where they are and what users want.
I don't like that. That's a very college way of doing things. Electrical engineering is different from this engineering from that. It's very branch driven, which I don't like. The next thing we spoke about was web dev, which is, I think we agree that it's done fairly well in the last 6-7 years. We spoke about game dev, 3D modeling, a lot of freelance opportunities from the US. Even right now, like companies like The Mill, who outsource to 3D modelers in India. I met one who's doing superbly well, 30-40 lakhs an annum because of the price parity. Yeah. It's not great salary for there, but here it's an awesome salary. So I think that's good. We also gave a bunch of courses, like all free courses where how you can learn Unity. We spoke about Unity Unity video game dev. We spoke about 3D game programming. This was back in 17, right?
And if you remember, back then I think I was pushing back like, let's not include the courses, right? Yeah. Because I was like, anybody who wants to do this needs to build the habit of figuring it out themselves. Yeah. But then the other balancing side that you brought in was like, you need to give people a starting point, right? Yeah. Figuring it out is hard. Yeah. Gets even harder when you're in.
There's so much noise, right? There's so many people selling shit and you don't know what is, like, that's why we kept all this stuff free. We're just like, yo, this is free stuff. You get started with this. At least then you have some direction to choose the path. Like without going through the tutorial, if you have to choose a path in any game, you don't know where to go. It's confusing. Yeah. Next, we spoke about product management. My personal opinion is I think we were wrong about this. I don't think PM is a freelance job.
Yeah. I think PM today is a very people-centric role.
You need to be there.
Yeah. And yes, if you're remote, there's a big gap. In fact, I feel like admin support, that's probably the wrong word for it because this person, she's now my, not even virtual assistant, right? Executive assistant, head of operations almost. I would say the similarity, not to say that they're the same, similarity is that product management, people intensive, very trust based role, high communication skill, and hard to do online. Yeah.
Yeah.
But doable. But I don't think it picked up in the way.
Picked up, it got popular, but I just feel like it's one of those roles where if you're really good at it, you should be in the office. Like you'd be much better at it in the office because it's so directly connected to business objectives. Like all the other things are not, everything else we spoke about as freelancing, the reason you can freelance it is not directly connected to business objectives. Even code is not, like you don't know how much more sales you're doing because of some line of code. You can't quantify that. And I feel like because of that, you can always outsource it because you're like, it's not, like it's critical, but it's not something where, me having one person outside is going to damage. But PM, like decisions on what to build, you'll lose a lot of time if you have the wrong person doing it, and you need it to be directly under the founders or whoever the guy running the business, guy or girl running the business.
Is product management commoditized today, or are we already at a part where it's automated?
I think it's not even hit peak popularity. Yeah. I think product management is still a little bit early. It's like acceptance. People know it's important. People think it's a woo-woo role, right? Like people think, oh, why do you need product management? A lot young people think that. Older people processize it, right? They're like, no, you do A and then B and then C. That's how you do product management. I think it's not about any of that. I think it's about uniquely understanding what your users want. It's a behavioral role. Actually, a lot of this to become successful is like understanding behavior, right? Like, so as a PM, if you know users are always going to do this. Like in a video, we know that, if we have a part where it gets too long and we're dragging it on to give more context. We can go deeper if necessary, but sometimes we don't because we're like, bro, they will click off and the video will do 10 times worse just because you've gone slightly deeper on this one point, especially in short form. So, it's not really, like it's just understanding behavior. It's the same with apps, right? Like, if you have 3 buttons, what's the darkest pattern to have to keep people there? It's a little bit of dark arts, going on there, but it's a behavioral role. And you need to sit with the data. So a little hard to do remote. Yeah. Then we spoke about app and backend dev, and we gave them like the full thing, right? Full whammy. We spoke about, hey, you start with learning databases, which is SQL, anything based on SQL. Then we spoke about you need a language. So for example, C, C#, Ruby, Java. We were using a lot of Ruby on Rails back then. Yeah. So the third thing we spoke about was, framework, like, Ruby on Rails, Java has Spring, stuff like that. So I feel we gave them a very good starting point. And this was also one of the highest paid remote roles. This is where I was making the most money. Like I did some design, but I didn't make as much money doing design as I did Ruby on Rails. I think that made me quite a bit of money. And the revolution with Ruby on Rails has just made everything simpler, right? It came with something that we call scaffolding, which means that you want some, a specific type of create, read, update, destroy type of page, where maybe a forum post or whatever, you can just generate that quickly, like a starting point very quickly. And Ruby had a great community where people used to put out these things called gems, where they said you can use a gem and you can figure out authentication. You can do this automatically. You can do this automatically. So the community was awesome. So you weren't like really, ghisofying code, right? You were like, bro, my job is to give this feature to the customer. I'm paid by the hour, so I want to do more for the customer. And one thing that started happening after I started using Ruby on Rails, I'm sure it happened to you as well. Once you got good at the skill, you started pricing differently. We stopped pricing per hour. We're getting good at this. We can do this authentication thing. We've done it 50 times. It doesn't make sense that I get paid per the hour for doing this anymore. I'll charge fixed price for these 5 features. That's when we start thinking more like a company rather than an hourly basis thing. And I want to touch on that a little bit later. But we spoke a lot about how do I pick. And we also spoke about how a lot of success in many of these jobs, including writing code, is creativity. And there's this beautiful image that I made, right? Like, I don't know if you can see this, right?
Yeah.
It's about how to become creative. It's actually, anyone can become creative. It is first step, copy something. Second step, understand how it was made. Okay. Third step, break it down into its individual components. What is part A, what is part B, what is part C, etc. Learn how individual components were made. So you learn each unit, each token of the thing. And then finally put individual components together in a new way. And that putting individual components in a new way uses creativity. So you break things down into their individual tokens or their individual units, put them together in a new way, and that's called creativity. 2017. We said creativity is not like some crazy, you're either born with it or not. It's learnable. If you replace the word creativity here with Gen AI, it's exactly the same thing. This is exactly how Gen AI is creative. You take something, you break it down into its individual tokens, you put it back together in new ways. It's roughly how Gen AI works today. So that's why Gen AI is creative.
Yeah. And I think the thing people miss out on is if they combine things together in the most standard, normie, basic way, you're going to end up with an output that is worse or maybe the same as Gen AI. If you want to really get creative, above the base creativity of where tech is today, you got to have good taste. Where does good taste come from? It comes from your experiences in life, how you internalize these experiences and then want to really express that in your work, right? The best designers I've worked with, they go crazy when they find a rare resource, when they find a small way they can improve their thing better. Or they're like, whoa, I can't even believe, why didn't I think of that, right? Versus most people who maybe are self-limiting, they're saying, I'm not a creative person. Those people are really blocking themselves because they're not even taking the effort of going and finding what's out there.
Yeah, like one thing I was very sure of is that creativity, you can make people creative. Like I've seen people who are completely uncreative who work with us for a while and then actually become creative. It's just about learning the patterns in your industry. Like I would be very uncreative in real estate because I don't know enough about the industry. But once you know an industry well, you can break it down into its units. You can rearrange those units. You can bring something new to it. There's one more piece we wrote in this chapter, and we're about halfway through the book right now, but it's an important piece about passion versus money. And there's one line we said, which is that the only thing that really works is discipline. Do you agree with this?
I think discipline works great in the short term to keep you going. But if you really want to stick through something in the long term, passion is super important.
Yeah, that's one thing I've changed my mind on. Like I used to think it's all about discipline and just doing the same thing over and over. Now that it's been 10 years since I started, more than 10, 12 years since I started my career technically, bro, it's everything is passion driven. Like you can't sustain any career without passion. Like 10 years is a long time to be disciplined. No human has the discipline to do it 10 years. You either love it or you don't. And if you don't love it, you're going to burn out in 2 years. If you love it or you find a way to love it, you can stay for 10 years.
And looking back, it's not that I don't think I was the most disciplined person.
Neither was I.
It's just that I couldn't imagine doing anything else. And I was like, it's this or nothing. And so I didn't even stop to think. And once you keep going down that, You reach these places where people haven't even.
Can I ask you why we thought it was about discipline? We were very young. We were like 23, 24.
Yeah.
We had some experience. We were running companies. I was running a company. You were at head of design at an academy. Why did we think it was about discipline?
I think the word passion carries a negative thing where it's like, oh, movies are my passion, music is my passion. Like people abuse the word passion.
Yeah.
But if you kind of, let's just say, remove the current associations with the word passion and you're like, it's the thing that you can't imagine yourself not doing.
Yeah.
Suddenly there's very few of those things in your life.
It's so surprising that both of us agree that passion is super important. Where 6-7 years ago we wouldn't have agreed. We would have just been like, bro, passion, like, it's stupid. I think in college people misuse the word passion. You're right, but actually it's all passion all the way down. Like if you're really passionate about something and you've shown signs of being passionate about it, you are going to do well at some point or the other. You will outlast every other person who's there just for money. Yeah. And I don't think, one cool thing about both of us is I don't think we've ever done anything for the money. We've always, even the passion leads you to a point where you know there's zero money in it, you'll still go there. I know you very well and you know me very well. So we'll always go there. Yeah. Interesting. Next chapter is around communicating your value. And I think we spoke about how to charge, right? We said that when you start your career, you start at an hourly rate, and over time you move to fixed price because, but it's bad to start with fixed price in the starting because you don't know how to bill. And we also spoke about weekly billing. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I think the core concept is if you think you're really good, why doesn't the world believe so, right? If you're really so smart, why can't you put in that effort or figure out how to make the world believe that? And I think the problem is people don't know how to communicate their value. Yeah. Which is how do you make the skills you have relevant to the other person?
Got it. So, what I feel is that I think this chapter doesn't matter. I think if you're good, you can charge whatever you want. If you're bad, you will always be like, even if you say, I want hourly billing, monthly billing, weekly billing, I want this much, client will be like, get out of there. It's like, it's this, right? Who wants the other person more? And I feel like a lot of freelancing is converting it from a push-based business where you're trying to get leads to a pull-based business. We'll come to that. I think that applies to everything now. But before that, we spoke about how to get clients. And I think this is the important part. Let's assume somebody already has the skills or started picking up the skills. We spoke about how to get clients. And that time it was different compared to today. So we have a chapter there called the platform game. We said, how do you land your first project? Use these vertical platforms like Upwork. Right? That time it was called Odesk. How do you use Dribble, Behance, there are a bunch of platforms, right? And you had this amazing piece about your player profile, how it's about creating a profile that people are really attracted to. Do you think we were right about the platform game?
I think now, decades later, we live in a matrix, all right? Like straight up, all right? And I think the reality of it is you have to realize you are playing a game. Because if you don't realize you're playing a game, you don't realize that, hey, I don't have to play to not lose. I can play to win. But for that, I need to understand what game am I playing.
I feel like this platform game, one thing we were wrong about is I don't think it was as much about Upwork and this thing and that. I mean, social discoverability was very low back then. Yeah. Not enough people had internet. It's just how does an American client find you? The guy who desperately has the problem, how do you get in front of him the day he has the problem? And I feel like using platforms was the only way because that's like urgency, right? Leaking into the world. But I feel like today it's become about Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. Today it's like earlier we were selling in these niche markets, whoever really wanted the service. Today you're going out on Twitter and ringing the bell and we're like, Dekho, main ye karta hu. You have to do that. So the platforms have evolved into like these super platforms, right? The Twitters and these things of the world. And I think one cool thing you said is that when you're reaching out to somebody, communication is key. And we spoke about what it looks like from the freelancer's perspective and what it looks like from the client's perspective. Let's say you pick up a project. Yeah. You are saying, okay, day 1, I'm doing the cool design. Day 2, I'm like, doing something else. Day 3, I'm fixing this. From the client's perspective, day 1, I just paid the guy. I haven't heard anything. Day 2, I haven't heard anything. Day 3, he's 100% scamming me. So you spoke about how it doesn't matter how much work you do. That's important. But you also have to communicate your value. Yeah, I mean, not value. You have to communicate what you're up to. Yo, I finished this today. Here's the temporary skilling. Yo, I finished this today. Like even today, I work with so many people outside of the business and even in the business who won't even respond. And I assume it's dead. 2 weeks later, they'll respond and they'll be like, bro, I finished this. Yeah. right? And it'll be completely wrong direction from what I wanted, right? Or it'll be perfect. Either way, I've lost trust. Even if 2 weeks you come back and you don't respond to me and you do something good, I will still have lost trust in you. Because I'm like, I can't trust you through the process. Yeah. Today you might have done this right. Next time when we do a project, you might have gone in a completely different direction or whatever we're doing. Yeah. So the line in bold here is managing expectations and consistent communication. I think everyone who's read this book learned the skills part. And we have a huge audience that now has the skills. Yeah. But they forgot managing expectations and consistent communication. Why? It's the harder thing.
Yeah. In fact, a note on this, back when I started freelancing, I assumed the client knows best, right? Because I still little bit carried that employer, employee, like you have to seek authority. And so I assumed the client knows best, which led to an assumption that the client will tell the process. But in reality, like looking at today when I send a proposal, I'm like, hey, every 48 hours, you will on the dot receive an update from me. The first update will be on this date. Every week we will have these many calls, and I set the process. I set the framework.
The client's also busy.
Yeah. And the client feels awesome about this because they don't have to now think about it and live in this uncertainty. They know that this person has a system, they have a process, and that I know at every stage where we are, what the expectation was, and where we're going to go next.
Would you recommend people use platforms today like Odesk, Upwork and all the others?
I think platforms are a great way to get leads, but the problem is the platforms set this path and process for you, which means they also charge extra for it. But then it also means you get a lot of people competing to be in this.
It's a little hard today with the competition today.
Yeah. So my suggestion would be, if you're able to create your own platform, which could be on it could be a Twitter, it could be a YouTube, it could be your personal website that you're driving traffic to.
There's a chapter about that. We'll come to that.
I think that's the better approach. And honestly, if you are on these platforms and you're trying to stand out, having an external source that the client can actually go and look you up, massive advantage.
One thing we spoke about is that it's good for your first client, platforms, but after that it's about repeat projects and referrals. You want your first client to connect you to, because clients are usually well connected. Like if you're an entrepreneur and you're successful, you'll know other entrepreneurs. It's part of the game. I feel like so many people forget this and fuck their customers over. Like they don't respond to their clients, they do a shitty job, they get thrown out of projects, and they go get a new one. You don't want to be in a place where you're constantly getting new projects, but you're constantly losing old projects. Because what you'll realize, if you do a great job for that first customer, that's 5 new customers guaranteed. Guaranteed. Or at least 2 new customers guaranteed. Just do the best job you can. Don't be in expansion mode before you're in the, I've proven this mode. And I feel like too many people want to make too much money really quick. And one learning I've had is it takes time. I'm sure you also had this, right? Like it takes 6-7 years for things to, even if you start freelancing, you'll be successful in year 3, year 4. We started 2012 when we first started freelancing. 2015 is when we started making serious money, and that too not very consistently. Today, I'd probably be able to make very consistent freelance money if I were to do it. But I still feel like it took so long, right, to be in the top few. And top few is where the money is.
And the rarest thing is trust, right? Yeah. The people who are burning each and every client, they just assume they can just get the next one. Yeah. But that might seem like a good short-term strategy, but over the long term, you make it so much easier for yourself if you are able to roll this trust across clients.
Why do they do it? Why do they burn clients?
Especially when freelancing online, people are like, my clients don't know each other. So if I do something here, the next client is not going to know, right? Versus in real life,
everyone knows each other.
Everybody knows each other. Yeah. If you don't deliver, if you fuck someone over, it's straight up, that word gets around. And I think trust takes a while to gain. You can lose it. But then reputation is as trust builds up, that becomes this thing called reputation. I don't think you can one-shot build reputation, but small steps, trust becomes reputation.
Dude, we did a project, okay, where for one of our clients where there was another agency involved and the agency guy got thrown out of the project. Okay, and he's like, first day he got the project, he's like, can I tweet about this? He'll get us some more this thing or whatever. Yeah. I was like, I don't know, ask the client, because there's a separate agency, young kid, okay? I was like, I don't even know why he was on the project. And he was like, I want to tweet about this. I'm like, listen, when you're online, what you're doing online and what you're doing offline is, like, when you're not the same person online, offline, the world gets to know. eventually. So it's best to be the same person online, offline. And that might take you some time. I understand when you're 20, you can't be that because you have nothing and you're hustling and you're trying and you're struggling. And everyone's story online a little bit is exaggerated. 20% people can give you, but it can't be like 2000% different, right? So you have to, I think that's very important. And we also spoke about community, right? Like being in a community of other freelancers and people. Next, we spoke about the freelancer's mindset, which is how much money can you make, what's the target, etc., which I think is kind of a boring chapter because I think the main takeaway from this chapter is, it's just about how much money you can make. I think we were right about all the numbers. But I think the main thing here we call it is we came up with this is the first project effect. Nobody believes they can freelance till they get a project online and they deliver. And I feel like today the first project effect a lot of people have gone through. That time it was just 2 of us and maybe 2-3 others in our circle, like Sandesh, Karthik, bunch of others. But anyone outside of that didn't believe us. Like it's like, they look at you with disbelief. They're like, no, you're not making money online. The only way is through a job. I had a friend, I don't know if you were there. I had a friend who was sitting next to me on a table and he was like, bro, I'll do anything for a 5 lakh per annum job. Right? I think you know who I'm talking about. This is in college. And we're like, yo, we're making so much more than that. And then we'd say it and they'd be like, bullshit. It's like, no, we're actually making it. And they still like look at you and they'll be like, no chance. So that's, today that believability element is there. Everyone believes you can make money freelancing, which I think is cool.
I think first project effect underrated because if you need to first prove to yourself that you can do it. That's the first project effect. You need to prove to yourself a second time that you can do it, so you know it wasn't a fluke. You need to prove it to yourself the third time that you can do it, so you're like, now I feel confident convincing the world that yes, that's me.
But to be honest, you'll never feel 100% confident. Even when you're doing 100 projects, you have a big company, you have hundreds of employees, I feel like you still won't be fully confident. Like that fear is always going to be there, can I repeat this? Or am I just a one-trick pony? Yeah. That's there in everybody's head. Awesome. Next chapter, and this is a chapter that a lot of people disagreed with us on back then, but I think now it's become real. It's called your personal brand. Dude, 2017 we wrote the book, 2018 it was published. Nobody believed in the ideas of a personal brand. They said, well, you mean CV. And I was like, I remember this conversation I used to have with people where like, no, I don't mean CV, I mean personal brand. Yeah. They're like, CV, LinkedIn. I was like, no, bro, that is like your work history, your college history, whatever. I am talking about your personal brand. I am talking about you putting yourself out there, putting out content about yourself, you telling the world what you can do. You're like, you mean sales. And people didn't get it. Like, they didn't understand why everybody needs to build a personal brand. The VCs were like, founders shouldn't build a personal brand, it should be about the company. And I was like, people don't listen to companies. People listen to people. And they're like, no, it has to be the company building a brand. I don't want the founders to build a brand. And at the same time, employers didn't want their employees building a brand. They're like, bro, you work for me, stop building brand. Stop doing, putting out your own content on the side. Today, it's been normalized. In every company, everyone's putting out content on the side. And that's completely fine. And I think, we said there are 2 things, right, to build a personal brand. One is be better than the average person at your skill. And number 2, share what you know and teach others. That's what we've done for 10 years. Why did we get this right and other people get this wrong?
I think people have this apprehension about being too salesy, like
promo guy.
They're like, I don't want to be seen as desperate, right? And back in the day, to give you an idea, if you were somebody, let's say you were in school and you started a YouTube channel, your friends would laugh at you. The next day you come to class, they're going to be like, look at this guy, what are you doing? Today it's like, firstly, everybody's got a channel, whether that's on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, but they don't even think about it, right? So today's generation, the question is not about should I build a personal brand or what is personal brand? It's more about how can I put myself authentically out there such that people resonate with it, they're attracted to me, and they get to know what I'm all about. Back then it was like, why should I put myself on the internet? That's so risky. What if people think something of me? Right? Versus today, that's the default.
I feel it came from our freelancing, this thing. We were competing against, on Odesk, I once did this math, right? I was like, at any given point of time, any project will have 50 applications. How do I look better than the other 50 applications? I was like, whatever I say, I'll do it with jazz. We'll do a nice CV around it. We'll do, like if I'm putting my, work experience, I'll do it nicer. I'll make a nice banner. Because that sort of stuff. I was just trying to win the deal against the other 50. Today you're on that big platform, Twitter, Instagram. The competition is now tens of thousands of people. Now you absolutely need to be more salesy.
Yeah.
Right? And I feel over time it's become more about you have to promote yourself. Otherwise, no one's going to give two shits. Yeah. And we also were right that it has to be built personally and not at a company level. Nobody cares about company brands. Even if you have a company brand and you have a face on it, the face will get popularity. Yeah. And the company's loyalty at the end of the day will be to the face. We've learned this with all the ed techs now. Yeah. Right? Where they'll build like some superheroes and then when those superheroes leave, the ed tech kind of gets crushed on the way out. Like I think we just took what was true for freelancing and we were telling the world, the freelancers to build a personal brand. Today, everyone has some freelancer dynamic, so everyone's built a personal brand. Yeah.
I think the misconception people had was personal brand is I have a logo. I have a logo and that's my profile picture and now I'm a personal brand. Yeah. But I think the thing that we realized to break this down is you got to put in the work, you got to put in the right amount of actions. This leads to some results.
Show that.
You show it. As people see these results, they're like, oh, we can trust this person. As your trust builds up, people are like, oh, they can do this thing and now they have a reputation for it. Yeah. And then as your reputation builds up, all of these things together, that's your personal brand.
Interesting. And we also spoke about promoting your content, not just putting out the content. Where do you promote it? And we said Hacker News, Reddit, Quora, Facebook groups, Twitter. Yeah. Only Twitter survived. And it's not even called Twitter. What did we get wrong about promoting your content? We didn't account for video here. I think that's our big miss. Like Nitin Kamath put out a post about how they really missed the early train of YouTube. And now they want to go all in. And they're spending, a lot of money and they're getting a lot of talent to do video. I feel like we didn't see video coming. I mean, we saw it. We spoke about Premiere Pro and this thing. We just didn't see how big it would become and how much of people's time they'd consume on more video.
I think it was weird back then to watch videos on your phone because...
But I never watched an influencer till like 2021. Yeah. I was like, you're following influencers. Yeah.
And phones were smaller. They were slow. And so if you want to watch a video...
Internet was terrible on phones.
Yeah. So if you want to watch a video, you will watch it on your computer. Yeah. And even that, you're not going to stream it. It'll probably be, you're watching it. Yeah. Video took over.
It was insane. So we put a recap on how to build a personal brand. Work on enough projects and gain references to be notable in your field. Create a personal website, WordPress or a Medium blog. Now I would add YouTube. Yeah. Post original content that you've written on a regular basis. Pick a regular schedule, stick to it, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly. Build a recurring audience by creating a newsletter and sending out emails with your content. I feel like that's changed now to just video content. Yeah. Once you have more inbound projects coming in than outbound, which at some point, there's some scale. I think the scale is about 100,000 followers. At which point you'll get more inbound than outbound.
Maybe sooner if you're in a niche.
Yeah, for you it would have been 20, 25,000, right? Where inbound is higher than outbound. Then you can wean off freelancing platforms. Then you don't need to look, right? And I think the next chapter was something I was completely wrong about, which is the art of the cold email. We were still thinking about outbound back then. And this entire chapter, right, about cold emailing customers, finding their details, reaching out to them, crap. Like, I feel like this is the one thing we were wrong about. Yeah. Why? I have thoughts, but I want to hear your thoughts whether you think we were wrong.
I think when you're starting out, it's very tempting to just spam the world, get your this thing out there, me, say something.
And follow up 20 times and get blocked.
Yeah. Versus when eventually you have this trust and reputation, you just have to say, hey, I like your work. Interested in working together? Let's get on a call. And if you have this base of work built up, if you have this reputation built up, people reply. And so I think the other thing in this is that today, most cold emails are ChatGPT. And it's obvious ChatGPT. So I see it and I'm like, yo, this sucks. Versus back then, even to write a base cold email, you had to do it yourself. Today though, saturated.
And it's very hard to cold email without a portfolio. Like without some body of work, why should I trust you? You're emailing me, why should I work with you? Yeah. Give a reason. Like especially somebody who's successful, they'll always ask, why should I work with you? Give a reason. Yeah. And if you haven't built anything by yourself, there's no reason for you to give. And you're wasting their time. And they've got a lot of people wasting their time in their email. Yeah. So I feel like the saturation got really high and these people want to work with good people. What I realized is the smartest people in the world actually want to work with good people. So if you have a portfolio and you've done work, they will reach out to you. You don't need to do anything. It is just a complete waste of time, in my opinion, to send cold emails today. It is maybe there is this thing in Twitter DMs or LinkedIn DMs or whatever. But I feel like even then you need a personal brand because they will look at your profile. When you DM somebody, first thing they're going to do if they don't know you is they're going to click on you and they're going to find out what has this person done. So anyway, the personal brand matters more because they're deciding at the DM level, should I even respond to this person? Is it even worth my time?
And interesting people are always looking to connect with other
Interesting people. Yeah, it's like, it is what it is. So I feel like the previous chapter kind of negated this chapter, and I feel like if we had to do it again, we'd just be like, just focus on the personal brand instead. And then at some point you will get to a scale where your DM matters, and then it's no longer spamming or sending 10 emails or whatever. Like, I was desperate when I was 20. We needed clients, so we did some of this. But I wouldn't do it again. And I have some people who follow up so many times that I'm just like, bro, it's stupid, right? Then we spoke about, there's an entire chapter about tax.
Tax was a very new thing back then.
Yeah, I mean, this has changed a lot because the tax rules in India have changed. There's no way we could predict this. We're both not financially savvy. But I feel like just get a person. Like, I don't think, do you bother with the tax? Do you personally see your tax?
I've got somebody who does it.
Yeah, like, I don't even know how much money I've made, to be very honest. Like, I just have a person doing it and I trust them. And I've been working with them for a while. If I get in trouble, I get in trouble. Then we spoke about managing your finances, where we spoke about where to save all this. I think that's been, like, we had some rules, okay, which is number one, avoid debt. I think that's correct. But I also feel
You
like...
don't want to get locked into loans and EMIs.
Yeah, but also I've seen the other side. When you have a loan, you actually work harder. Once you have enough money, a loan makes you work even harder. Otherwise, it's very easy to retire on less money. Next thing is talk about money. I disagree with this. I don't think you should talk about money.
I think the only place you can talk about money is high trust circles.
Yeah, you should not talk about publicly.
The minute you do it in a public domain, it triggers people.
Yeah, and I've decided in my life, I don't want my life to be about money at all. Like, it has to be about cool experiments, things I'm doing. Fuck money. The minute you talk about money, people make it only about money. And then you lose your identity as anything else except money. I hate it. Then diversify, that I still agree with. And the last one is habituate to a frugal lifestyle. I think...
Disagree.
Yeah. Yeah, your Balenciaga shoes are very expensive. Yeah. How much do they cost?
80K.
Yeah, so why have we...
My guess is when you're starting out, you're playing in defensive, right? You don't want anything to go wrong. And so you're always protecting what you have, which is great. It's good to have that mindset. So from that perspective, I understand. You got to be a little paranoid.
At 20, we didn't have that much money. At 23, we didn't have that much money. So this was important.
Yeah. But moving forward, as you grow older, you want novelty in life. You want to connect with people over interesting things that you've got going on. And in general, I think, like streetwear in India, huge right now. Why? It's because people want to express themselves, right? So it's not about being frugal and wearing basics. It's not about the money. It's like, I want to express myself through whatever I buy, through the products, through what I watch.
Yeah, we kept saying that the lower your personal burn rate, the more money you can put into learning new things and trying out new ideas. That's what I do. Every dollar we make, we put it back into trying something new. Because I don't know what else to do with life, to be very honest.
I think this can be really bad advice because for me, I delayed hiring a team. For the first 2 years of running 10K designers, I tried to do everything by myself. And I think a little bit of it was the whole Silicon Valley thing of don't hire before you need to. And of course, being frugal, being paranoid, I don't want the company to die. But then eventually I realized you can't just hold money like this, right? You gotta have your hand open if you want to receive.
Dude, it's like this. So the first time I played GTA, right? One of the recent versions, I would like buy something and then I'd buy more things, but I wouldn't use it. Like I play a lot of Souls games, right? Like Elden Ring, Wukong. I'll have items. I just won't use it because I'm like, if I use it, it'll go.
And the worst feeling, bro, you finish the game and you're like, fuck, why would
I have so many items.
Oh my God.
Right? So, and even though I play a new game, and I'm like, now I'll use all the items I collected, and you can do a new game plus, right? Where you play the second version of the same, second retelling of this thing. And I still don't use the items. I'm like, but if I use it, it'll go, and maybe there's a chance I'll die, maybe there's a chance I'll lose. So yeah, it is, like I still believe in spending everything back on the company. Like I feel like playing a life where you hoard money is not really a fun life. And you're taking away from the economy. That's money that if other people are giving you value, you should put it back. And that's why we tend to hire people and whatnot. It's a more fun life. Like now that you're working with a team compared to when you're doing it with 2-3 people, it's so much more fun.
Yeah, I don't need discipline. I'm just like every single day I'm excited about every small thing that happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Next is a chapter on managing stress and ambiguity. And again, we spoke about creativity. The minute it becomes about creative flow, when you copy something, understand how it's made, break it down, blah, 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 creativity really helps. The opposite of creativity, when you're stuck doing something, is called anxiety, where you're using creativity in the wrong way, basically. You're creative about bad incidents that might happen in the future. I have learned one or two things about, managing stress and ambiguity in freelancing and running a company and work in general. But I want to hear your thoughts first.
I think the opposite of creativity is like creativity is all about flow, but the opposite of that is resistance. And I think when you are stressed, when you're anxious, you start resisting things because you're like, I want to be safe from this. But the more you resist, the less you can get into flow.
Yeah, I feel like people make bigger demons in their head than it is. The first time I raised funding, for us 1.72 crores is a big amount of money. But if I had hung out with other entrepreneurs, I would know that it's not a big amount of money. Even for back then, it was okay, it was decent, but it's not that big. And lots of investors had pulled it in. So, but in my head, I thought I would raise like 100 million, and the anxiety and pressure on me was very high. And I broke down because of it, to be honest. Like the first 2 years, like I don't recommend anyone be an entrepreneur right out of college. It's a little bit hard. Like you can't absorb the pressure yet. And entrepreneurship is more pressure absorption role than it is anything else. Because every day there's some shit, right? And can you manage it? So I feel like a lot of managing stress and anxiety is not making it a big demon in your head. Like even work, you can just quit. You hate a job, why stay? So you can just quit. It's normal. I feel like when you're working from home though, you make bigger demons in your head. Or if you don't have peers. So if you sit in an office and you have 10 peers who are all like, when I was giving exams, right? Like we were in Manipal. We'd all sit in one house and we'd be like, bro, I don't know anything about tomorrow. I haven't studied. And there'll be 10 other guys who are like, yeah, even I didn't study. And all of us would high-five and then we'd all go and almost fail, right? Somehow it'd come out. But I feel like if I was sitting at home doing it, the exams would have been much bigger pressure in my head. I wouldn't know what the normal this thing is. So when you do a job, if there are 10 other people, if you're doing freelancing, you're freelancing with 10 other people, are like, bro, this is normal. This ambiguity about next month is normal. Then you feel a little more calm because your misery loves company. And when you have 5 other people who are in the same state as you, you feel better. So I feel like a lot of this anxiety can be erased by just sitting with 5 other people who do the same thing as you in some community or some this thing. That's why companies are much better than freelancing. Because you're doing it with 10 people now. They're all feeling similar things. And that helps you sleep a little bit better.
And I think the world realized how important communities were when we were forced to be alone during the
pandemic. Yeah, we went mad.
Yeah. And yes, there was a lot of Discord activity and you're doing all of this, but overall the bigger picture it points at is if you're doing something alone just by yourself, you feel like the odd one out. And so you kind of create this massive resistance in your head, like what if it goes wrong? What if I do this? Versus the minute you do it in a community, it's like, hey, it's not...
Your problems are not unique.
Problems are not unique. And everything is figure outable. Like you can do it. You can figure it out.
Yeah, I agree. I think I have some thoughts around work from home, which we'll come to, right? Around Pyjama Profit itself. But we'll talk about that later. Then, the penultimate chapter, which I think this is the last chapter we'll cover. It's called Robots Will Take Your Job. 2017. Bold statement to make. There's no reason and no way a human mind can keep up with an artificial intelligence machine by 2035. Gray Scott.
I think most people probably skipped this chapter. Number one, because it was the last one, so they're like, oh, whatever. But I don't think people took it seriously.
Yeah, I mean...
I don't think I took it seriously when you suggested we add this as a chapter.
Yeah, but it was obvious, no, at some point or the other, like, it might not have been AI-based automation, it could have been other ways, but we spoke about AI specifically here. But it's this curve, Abhinav. Right? This curve that eventually after commoditization, automation comes. And automation could come in many ways. Automation could come with somebody else giving you an SDK of your entire app. And then you can just implement that instead of building your entire app. Like we saw that happen in my previous company, right? So, I mean, you can think about this in this. Like 20 years ago, to maintain an e-commerce store, it cost you $200,000. You need an engineer, you need Magento. Today, it's like Shopify at $20, $30 a month. Right? So that is automation in a way, right? Like now you don't need an entire e-commerce store. There's already something that provides it for you as the end customer. And you as the end customer don't care whether it's yours and you have a dev running it on Magento. That's actually more complexity. Compared to Shopify, which you know is $1 billion stable company where lots of other people will complain if it goes down. Like you want reliability and stability once you get to a certain scale. And it has now been proven that Shopify is reliable at scale. But back then, people were still unclear. They're like, there was used to be this argument that it's better to do Magento with your own dev than Shopify. And we had a lot of clients also reaching out saying, I want to do my own store with Magento or whatever. So that was what I meant when I meant automation to some extent, right? Which is somebody will build something and then the thing that you would build for a customer now is replaced.
Low level repeating tasks, eventually there's a lot of incentive to like, hey, let's just get this out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I said there were chatbots that are replacing aspects of customer support. So that's turned out to be true. And then we also spoke about should I be scared, right? About this automation. And we said that, look, you don't want too many people jobless. It turns to verbal and physical violence. And that's what we're seeing on Twitter. We're seeing a lot of verbal violence play out because people have a lot of free time in their hands. And people should not have that much free time. Humans have a mind that invents problems, real or fictional, right? And then we spoke about how the Pyjama Profit economy actually helps. When you're freelancing, at least you have something to do. You have some gigs to keep doing, and it's different from where you do lots of odd jobs versus, you're doing one repeatable, automatable thing, where you're using this creativity. But dude, there's a bunch of lines here where I'm just going to read it out. The defense against this is when each human being can create one unique combination of experiences and skills based on their personal interests and purpose, they can build their own unique brand story. An AI can't copy your unique brand story. An AI can't write a book about it can write a book about Superman, but it can never make money because it's copyright to someone else. Yeah. The chapter Creating Your Personal Brand in this book reflects the idea. This is the only way humans can differentiate between themselves and a trainable machine. The trainable machine has no heart, no passion, both true, and no creativity. And then in brackets, I said machines will get pretty creative soon, though. You can read it here. Right? So we were right. I mean, it was a complete disagreement. A lot of people thought at that point machines are not going to be creative. Today it feels like heresy to even say that machines cannot be creative. But back then I remember Naval had a tweet saying AI is never going to be creative. And a lot of people said AI is never going to be creative. So my entire thought process here is, dude, what we do, creativity is just breaking things down, rearranging it. Yeah. We already knew that. And that's exactly what ended up happening. But this combination, this defense of you build your personal brand and you use this tool and your skills to create your own unique story. That is what you've become very successful at. And that's what I've also become very successful at, right? With the AI avatar, we're using AI. It's my story. Nobody else can make a Varun Maya AI avatar because I would sue them. Because I own the rights to me. It has worked out exactly as we put it down here. This was the only defense against AI, the personal brand combination with AI and your own understanding of the skill in the space, which is amazing. I feel like, and that's what I want to talk to you, right? Like, I feel like we're at the end of the book. At this point, I wrote the JobSpire story and all that. I feel like we've reached the end of this book. And I think the biggest differentiator between back then, when we wrote the book, and now, it's not even remote work. I think it is AI. And now we have the chat GPTs and the stable diffusions and so much more, right? So what I want to end on is, I want to end on two things, right? One is, now I want you to make 3 predictions. Okay, it's going to be out of the blue. I'm going to make 3 predictions about the next 5-6 years. Just like what the predictions made in the past, you would have tried something new. You tried freelance back then. You saw Upwork and Odesk work for you. So you're like, okay, I'm going to extrapolate this for the next 10 years. It's just going to keep going up because I see the value in this. Nobody believes me. What is something nobody believes you on right now? 3 things that you have tried, you have some experience with, and you can extrapolate and know it's going to become much bigger. And of course, there needs to be some profit there.
So number 1, outputs can be replicated, but the thing that cannot be replicated is your unique story. Correct. There is no second Varun Maya. Correct. Right? So I think what's going to become really important is people lean into their personal experience, personal story, and express that in their work. So I think the importance of expressing your taste, being, let's just say authentic, or being yourself, the 100% version of yourself, becomes super important. I think in terms of design, we might see individual siloed roles kind of get less relevant over time. I think the design role of the future probably looks something like a creative director. This is somebody who has a unique set of experiences, a unique set of global references for what they think is cool, and is able to take that, channel that into narratives, so stories, into products, into all the things that they create. So that's number 2, creative director as the future role of design.
It's called a creative director. Somebody who's just like, I'll use all the tools in front of me and AI in front of me and people in front of me to tell stories to the world, to spread narrative in the world and to, sort of make these products also shaped by narrative instead of being a generic.
Yeah. And number 3, I think marketing as we know it is dead. Most
You mean advertising?
Let's talk about it, right? So I think most companies today think in terms of, hey, we need to do campaigns. This campaign is going to be on TV, newspapers, the traditional advertising mindset. I think we're already seeing at the edge that's changed. I think the future is companies hiring creators to run stuff. But I think the future is companies realizing, hey, we need to not think in terms of siloed roles. We need to think in terms of BX, the brand experience across touch points. And so I think marketing is likely not going to be the kind of role it is today. It'll be more about community activations. It's about defining the culture such that people understand what exactly this brand is about. And it's going to become more about how do you have a unique brand voice that represents something. And I think the people who do it will be creative directors, designers, whether that's multiple mediums, whether that's somebody who's a video editor who now wants to branch out, whether that's a UI UX designer who's like, hey, I want to get into physical streetwear. I think that's how it plays out.
Interesting. I'll tell you three these things. I think the first thing is video is going to be huge. I mean, this is something we both agree on, I guess. I mean, the world agrees on. I don't think this is the future anymore. I think it's just shy of peak popularity. I think next year it'll be peak popularity, after which there will be commoditization and whatnot. I think I think I'm going to make wild predictions. I think the next TCS, Wipro, blah, blah, blah is going to be made in video. Like, I'm pretty sure of this, right? Just the sheer demand of people who want content is out of the roof. Because like we've mentioned, right, AI is automating everything. So you're only concerned now about getting users. There's 2 ways to get users, either run ads or do content. And content, it really works. You go speak to the guy called Ethan who runs something called Parallel Live. It's like this one app, okay? And he's grown the app to millions of users very quickly. And he's like, the only thing I do is influencer marketing. I don't do anything else. So everyone who's building an app, who's building products, who's doing D2C, like the Mamaearth story is really on the back of a lot of creators. Zerodha story is also on the back of a lot of affiliate creators in the early days. I don't know if you know this. So video has really mattered and people just prefer consuming video. We have never had anyone consuming 5 hours of blog posts a day. The average person did not consume 5 hours of blog posts per day, but they are consuming 4 to 5 hours of video on screen time wise at least, which is insane. You and I, considering we are creators, we never spent 5 hours reading blogs or even the newspaper. Maybe our parents' era spent 30 minutes an hour reading newspaper. Now it's like they're spending too much time on video. That's number one. I think video is going to be huge. Number 2 is I think games are going to be huge. Games are also pajama category. I think it's the most underrated pajama category because if you look at my time, where my time is going, when I'm bored, I'm sitting at home, I'm just video gaming. But that's also because I grew up gaming, so it's exception. But if you sit in any flight in India and then you sit in the business class or the premium economy seats, the people next to you will be slightly older, slightly more well-to-do, and also really bored. Yeah. They pull out their phone, they're not doing work, nothing. Okay? They pull out their phone, they're playing video games. And they're playing Candy Crush and like the boring games. So as boredom increases, as AI automates more tasks and roles, people want new experiences. They want to be immersed in a new world. And they want it to be on mobile phones. So mobile phone gaming controllers are going to be big. Games are going to be big. Making games is going to be more and more important, as we saw with Wukong recently, right? They're now going to push the boundary of making games. And it's not only going to be games, it's also going to be experiences. You saw the new glasses by Meta, right? Orion. I mean, it's pretty obvious that at some point we are going to be living in a world where there are 3D creatures near you, you're playing Pokemon in the real world, like what you're doing right now, like what you're recording right now, right? So I feel we are going to be in that world and it's not very far away. The third prediction, and actually I have 4, but I'll tell you the third one anyway. I think work from home is not a good idea for early stage companies. I think if you're a mature company, by all means work from home. But I think you can't do Pyjama Profit as an early stage company. You know how I would have done this book if I was doing it today? I would have gone in the real world, met the hundreds, somehow met physically at an event or whatever. Like people saying networking is for idiots or whatever. It's for idiots if you already have some story for yourself. But I think in the early days, you absolutely have to network. I would go meet the wealthiest people in India, the people who are actually hiring, the people who are at businesses, build physical relationships with them. Because that, you can unlock a lot of money when you build physical relationships. IRL, in real life, right? And people also do better over time. So if you know somebody today, 5 years later, they will suddenly have the capital deployment ability 10 times as what they had 5 years ago. So building those deep relationships matters. Helping those companies grow actually matters in the early days, and it is a physical role. So it wouldn't be Pyjama Profit, it would be Pant Profit or Trouser Profit, right? Where you actually have to go in the physical street, or Cargo Profit, right? Where you're wearing cargos and going around because it's the most comfortable thing to wear. So I feel work from home is super overrated for young people. Once you become successful, once you already have a brand, very easy for you to get more projects, sit at home by all means. 30s, by 35, you should be able to sit at home, that's fine. You should not start your career like this. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think IRL relationships, underrated. Importance of community, we talked about it. The physical community. I mean, colleges are all about community. It's a 4-year community experience. We don't remember the classes, we remember the relationships.
As a part of my life, I miss the most.
Yeah.
I'm sure with you as well, right? Like if I had to choose one thing I miss is like just college. Not class, but college.
Yeah.
And it's worth every rupee ever spent.
Yeah.
Right? It's the one thing I don't regret at all in terms of spend, right? So I feel like if you can create that for others, it matters. If you're part of that, it matters for your life. You sitting at home, what memories are you making? You're sitting at home doing the same thing, routine. You know, life burns out very quickly when you're doing that. What memories are you making? What new stuff have you done? Or you're making a little bit of more money. You're doing it without having to be in an office on time. Great, but you're missing out on the entire experiences that your peers are having. I'm sure at our office, there are like a bunch of people who are going out, having fun at night. I don't know, but I'm sure it feels somewhat to college. We try to make it as much, especially for the young people, to make it feel as much as college. So I think you'll ruin your career doing work from home in the beginning of your career, but later on I understand. The last point is around coding. And I think I should clarify my thoughts on it. But first I want to hear your thoughts on code.
Yeah. See, I don't see code as somebody who did computer science. I no longer see code as a skill. I don't see code as a thing to do. I see code more as a material, as a thing you get to play with, right? And so today as a designer, I'm not thinking about, oh, should designers code? I'm thinking about, okay, I think for my full creative expression, I need to be comfortable in as many materials, as many mediums as possible. And code is a strong one. Yeah.
I'll tell you what I think. I think writing code will die. It will become English at some point. But engineering will live on. Sid from my team, from 100x team keeps saying this. He's like, bro, the reason we named it 100x engineers and not 100x coders is because we don't know what's going to happen to code. And it's pretty, like if you've seen Replit agents and all, it's pretty clear that you're going to have English. But still, knowing what to say and what the computer can do still requires you to know how to code. So it's almost like you learn the skill, but then you use English to implement the skill. Because you need to learn the limitations of the computer. You need to learn, for example, simple stuff, right? Like you can't make a game without knowing how pixels are rendered on the screen. Yeah. Right? I'm talking about the actual 3D models, how they're rendered, how light works in a game engine. You need to know all of that. So you already need to know all that theory. Because only then can you prompt the system to say, I want this character doing this. I want this animation at this time. If you don't understand how state machines work, you won't understand how animation loops work. Yeah. So it's stuff like that. So you need to know the concepts. You need to be a coder, but you might not write code. It's like this, right? It's like the best example I can give is that of a warrior. You need to know how to swing the sword. Okay? You need to know how to hold the sword, which swords feel good, which swords feel bad, how to sharpen it. But then you are no longer the one going and swinging the sword in battle. You are the strategist. You are telling the 3 swordsmen, idhar ja. You're telling the 4 swordsmen, flank him from the right side. Yeah. You're telling him, don't use these swords, use guns instead, because this angle is blocked. That's what we'll all be doing. And if you don't understand how swords work, or how guns work, or how the swordsman works, then you are never going to be able to do battle strategy well. So it's sort of like that. Learning how to code is important, but coding might not be as important. That's my analysis of this, which is where I think the future will head. Amazing. I think How have our predictions held up?
I'd say pretty well. It says the millennials guide because we were millennials back then, but I think any Gen Z who read this had a massive advantage over their peers.
And now it's played out. There are like lots of 25, 26-year-olds who are like, bro, Pyjama Profit kickstarted my career. Yeah. Like, I didn't even know all this existed. I was going to go do some chemical engineering and then be some chemical engineering guy somewhere. I didn't even know all these internet roles existed. Yeah. Which is awesome. Like, did you expect the impact you would have from this?
No, and a lot of that is invisible. So, in fact, I still don't know it. Yeah. Every once in a while, I hear somebody mention it. I know we've written this book. I know there's a lot of our own life experience that we've put into it. Yeah. But it was many years ago. And so I feel like maybe it might be time for the next version.
I'm so surprised we've been on the internet for 7-8 years and it's still holding up. Yeah. Should have been cancelled by now. All right. That's about it. Thank you all for joining. I hope you learned something from this video. Make sure you like, subscribe. Abhinav has a channel too.
Yeah, check out my channel. It's ABNUX. I also run 10K Designers. You can check that out on YouTube.
Awesome. Bye-bye.